Rajkamal sir, please proceed.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Very good morning to all of you. Before starting this session, would like to share with you all a nice subhashita, which is always near to my heart. The subhashita is like this: Na chor harya, na cha raj harya, na bhatru bhajyam, na cha bharakari. Vyayam krute vardata eva nityam vidyadhanam sarva pradhanam. If we translate the same into English, then it cannot be stolen by a thief, nor it can be taken away by the king. It cannot be divided among brothers. It doesn't have weight. If spent regularly, it always keep growing. The wealth of knowledge is the most superior wealth of all. Good morning again to all of you. I am your host, Dr. Rajkamal Ajmeri. I would like to express my deep sense of thanks for taking time to join us on this auspicious virtual dialogue series titled Social Work in 21st Century, Relevance of Indigenous Practices. A very warm welcome to respected HOD Professor Sanjay Vanani sir, my dear faculty members, students, and all the participants at the event. Before moving on the next phase of the program, with the due permission of our guest, I would like to brief about the indigenous practices to our participants. The indigenous practices is regulated by demonstrated competencies in the performance of services and functions that are undertaken on behalf of indigenous populations. Developing countries have several indigenous practices which tends to be harmony with the nature, but unsustainable use of modern technology has destroyed such harmony and mutualism. These practices are founded upon restoring harmony to indigenous population through working with their sacred science, social sciences, or the sacred sciences and practices which are personified in experiences of their collective knowledge. A good example of indigenous practice came into my mind is Ethno Pharmacology. If you all are aware about, then the quinine, quinine is the world's first treatment for malaria, which was discovered by the Amazonian Indians. Traditional healing herbs and the other plants from which many modern medicines derives. The core relevance of the same in social work field will try to learn from our eminent speakers today. Now, I would like to request Professor Sanjay Vanani sir for welcoming address of our eminent speakers of the day. Please, sir.
Thank you, sir, for setting the tone for the discussion. First of all, I would like to welcome all esteemed people who made a time for delivering the sessions and come to the Ganpati University platform. Colonel Sideegowda Sahab, you're known for your contribution, you're known for your work, and you are heading the institutions as like the layman, so that everybody can reach you. We really appreciate your simplicity and the great work that you are conducting in higher education domain. Sir, we are pleased and we are honored to have with you, and we thanks for accepting our invitations.
Thank you.
Ghosh Sahab, you are from Holy Land. Especially, I'm fortunate to visit Shantiniketan in the year of 2009. And probably, I mean, we are come to visit your department to see your activities and how that you are functioning. So, I'm still connecting the waves of Babuji, and we are really happy that against this virtual way that we are connecting Vishwa Bharati University and such holy land, in fact, in the higher education domain. Pratibha ma'am, uh, you are really one of the the leaders in especially in eastern region for social education is social work education is concerned. We really appreciate your work and the thoughts that you are sharing with everyone else for improving the social work education in India. Professor Dr. Bishnu, sir, you are our own man. We think like that. When like when we talk about the Ganpati University Department of Social Work, you are always happy to handle us, and you are guiding us in a many way. So, in fact, this particular series that you have suggested the title, we really acknowledge your supports and the wisdom that you have shared with us. Sir, we are honored to have, and we're really lucky that today we have the panel of esteemed speakers and the educators who have at least spent more than 2 decades in the same field. So I'm quite sure that all the learner will definitely enjoy the thoughts, and it is our responsibility that how we can put all the thoughts into the action. So once again, thank you all esteemed guests for accepting our invite and being part of this virtual series. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Sanjay Vanani, sir, Head of the Department of Social Work. Now, with the due permission of our eminent speakers and Professor Sanjay Vanani, sir, would like to share with you all an aerial view of Ganpat University.
Colonel Sahab, Ghosh Sahib, so this is our campus, Bishnu sir, Pratibha ma'am. So it is our humble invitation to visit whenever you are in Gujarat, right? Yeah, please, Raj Kamal sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Uh, on behalf of Department of Social Work and the Ganpat University, uh, would like to extend our special welcome with a word of flowers to all the esteemed speaker once again. I take this opportunity to introduce one and all the guests of the today's session, starting with Colonel Professor Y.S. Sideegowda, sir. Sir is currently working as a Vice Chancellor at Tumkur University, Karnataka. He has served various universities in last 35 years. Sir has a very rich experience of serving the universities. Sir has published 108 research articles and 6 books. He has completed 7 major projects, and I think one project is under process of 6 crores. Sir has successfully guided 17 candidates and awarded PhD degrees. Sir has attended more than 350 national and international conferences. Sir was also an editor and a member of 11 reputed national and international journals. Sir, on behalf of Department of Social Work, we welcome you. Thank you so much for coming. Now, I'm taking the opportunity to introduce our second guest, Dr. P.K. Ghosh, sir. Sir is currently working as a professor at Department of Social Work at Vishwa Bharati University, West Bengal. Sir is an external expert and board of studies members of many universities. He has delivered many lectures as an external experts and visiting faculties in numbers of foreign universities outside India. He has served many years of his teaching experience in Tata Institute of Social Sciences as well. Sir has published and edited more than 4 books. He published 11 plus research articles and books chapters in various prestigious journals of India. Sir, on behalf of Department of Social Work, we welcome you. Thank you so much for coming. The next guest, Dr. Pratibha Mishra. Ma'am is currently working as a professor in Guru Ghasidas Central University, Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. Ma'am was awarded Indira Gandhi Priyadarshini Award for outstanding services, achievements and contribution in a field of social service in the year of 2010. Ma'am was also awarded for Rashtriya Gaurav Award for meritorious services and outstanding performance in the year of 2010. Ma'am was awarded for district level for outstanding performance in the field of social service in the year of 2007 in specifically social work field. Another award into her credit was the block level for outstanding and excellent social services in 2009. Ma'am, on behalf of Department of Social Work, Ganpat University, we welcome you and thank you so much for coming. And lastly, Dr. Bishnu Mohan Das. Sir is currently working as Associate Professor at IGNOU, New Delhi. It's an Indira Gandhi National Open University. He is recipient of Best Teacher Award from Government of Delhi in the year of 2019-20. Sir has received prestigious Delhi University Excellence Award for Teachers in the year of 2021. He also a General Secretary of Bharatiya Samaj Karya Parishad, promoting for Indianization of social work education in India. And additionally, Sir is also an editorial board member and advisory member in several national and international journals, including Practices, Social Work in Action, Routledge, Taylor and Francis London. Specifically, we can speak about it then, which was published by British Association of Social Workers. Sir is an associate editor of South Asian Journal of Participative Development and is a member of editorial board of Bhopal Journal of Social Work. Also 16 plus books. On behalf of Department of Social Work, Ganpat University, we welcome you. Thank you so much, sir, for the coming. Now, let us focus the schedule of today's virtual series. We'll try to learn the experiences on the relevance of indigenous practices of social work in 21st century from the different experienced speakers one by one. And we'll have a question and answer in the last. It is my humble request to all the participants, please feel free to drop the questions on your concerned topic and write the name in front of speaker so that we understand to ask the question to them. Now, lastly, thank you so much, sir, for coming in a very short period of notice. And I would like to give the complete floor to Colonel Professor Y.S. Sideegowda, sir. Please share your enlightened experience with us and all the participants so that we can be illuminated with your knowledge. Please, sir, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Raj Kamal. I deem it a great pleasure to be in the amidst of my professional fraternity. Yesterday that I addressed that the repressor course at Pondicherry University. Today that Ganpat University, where that I get an opportunity to meet and exchange on various issues concerning social work profession. Today's that the topic of the webinar is so relevant: social work in 21st century, relevance of indigenous practices. The very title that reflect a knowledge era. 21st century is regarded as a knowledge era. So we used to work in the factory, taking that raw material, all 4M we used to talk. Man, material, man, this thing, money, and what other these things. Today that without anything that you can work and increase your GDP. To do so, you have to have your own that culture, your own traditions, your own that the way of living, so that it is easy to swim in the known zone. Really, the issues to deliberate is more intricate concerning that the indigenization of professional social work that was largely into the clutches of West and Europe so far, that need to be declutched, as these clutch and declutching are approaches of any advanced mechanism of progress. The indigenous knowledge, as we all know, refers to the critical importance of shaping social work to suit to that social, economic, and cultural realities. Indigenization implies adopting important issue ideas to fit local needs. We all know that it was imported. Local that needs, and modifying social work roles to become appropriate to the needs of different principles of human rights and social justice are fundamental to social work. If you look at that, the definition which are available in all the books that clearly speaks of social work, has from its conception been a human rights profession, no doubt in it, having as its basic tenet the intrinsic value of every human being, and as one of its main aim, the promotion of equitable social structure which can offer people security and development while upholding their dignity. If you look at the philosophy of social work, clearly it says that man is an object of self-respect, not because that is a very important, very rich, or very influential, but by the very fact that is human being. That is what that social work philosophy clearly that emphasize. The profession's focus on meeting that the common human needs, including that the needs of vulnerable and oppressed that the classes, involves upholding social justice that they defined as an ideal condition in which all members of society have the same basic rights, protection, opportunities, the obligations, and social benefits. The social work profession that promotes the relationship and the empowerment and liberation of people to enhance the well-being. As we all know, often I talk that Dr. Clifford, who initiated social work education in India, in its very inaugural speech at the opening session of the Sir Dorabji Tata Graduate Schools of Social Work, emphasized about the Indianness in social work, teaching as well as a practice and research. He made it very clear. The curricula practiced in America were adopted in our social work teaching. The curricula having been borrowed thereby undermines the relevance of Indian reality. This paved the way for the Anglo-American and Eurocentric perspective of social work rather than on understanding the Indian social system in its ideological plateau. One of the foremost criticism against social work is negligible indigenous literature. Even now that I am also of the same opinion. Theory and curriculum, all this. Hence, there is a clarion call to reorient first our curriculum. The other day also I was talking to my friends. Had there been consistent development of that the indigenous literature, social work literature vis-a-vis, the thing what we are discussing today would not have appeared at all. Because of lack of indigenous material, we were forced to adopt, take the shelter under the all Western and European authors. That is the real problem where that we are at the crossroad today. A paradigm shift in social work curricula away from the normative toward an inclusion of indigenous knowledge as well as anti-colonial and contemplative frameworks in social work profession. Now that we are feeling that it is very essential. This paradigm shift is necessary, better late than the never, because Indian ideologies and culture should be embedded in all the disciplines of the social sciences in general, to tell you honestly, and social work practice, teaching and practice in particular. Why I am insisting here that in all that social sciences, but as we all know that social work doesn't have its own body of knowledge. It draws heavily from all social sciences, all sciences for that matter. Therefore, that if we see that Indian tenets in all the the roots of the disciplines, that it is easy to imbibe in social work practice. It is time to demonstrate core values of social work professionalism, which should be in sync with indigenous, anti-colonial, and contemplative frameworks, and that with the integration of these frameworks in social work, education, practice, and that research. Practice, I am talking that field work. It is imperative that as social work is seen as the other culture, which is an aberration, it needs to shift its focus from Eurocentric, as I mentioned earlier, Anglo-American assumptions and values. This change is necessary because despite a commitment to diversity and inclusion, social work education needs to incorporate indigenous knowledge of our country. India's indigenous knowledge is dynamic, as we all know, holistic, and results from its relations between individuals, that group means the family and the community. It is useful in understanding how localized knowledge, which are rooted in cultural histories, can lead to social change. Our nation's indigenous knowledge and social work education is a new foundation on which principles of societal integration should be nourished. We need to incorporate our own knowledge and practice that is contextually grounded in our own indigenous practices. Efforts to indigenize the curriculum tailored to meet the local needs of the Indians should be emphasized. Against this backdrop, efforts are being made to incorporate Indian philosophical and cultural wisdom in social work literature and practice. The curriculum is being redesigned to include rich and social service traditions. India, whose social service theme begins with dharma and having a rich cultural and spiritual heritage, should incorporate these teaching and tenets of the Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism, and Vedic approaches in our curriculum. These tenets have an impactful bearing on human mind and the behavior. The Indian concepts of social welfare like dharma, dhanam, yajna, punya, purushartha, bhakti, the Vedic ontology, Shastric principles, which was the guiding light and force for our ancient gurus, should be included in our curriculum to make it more relevant. In the world of 21st century, challenged by globalization and the widening gap between rich and poor, social work with its holistic focus on the complexities of people interaction with their environments has much to offer. We need a changed conception of social work which represents effectively the whole range of its knowledge, including indigenous skills throughout the universe. This will facilitate a shared discourse and a shared conception that organized that the methods of social work, it may be case work, group work, community work, and other auxiliary methods and intervention that are worthwhile for related social purposes. I am sure that the gathering assembled here would further look into the dimensions of indigenization of professional social work to more groomed into Indian social and contextual milieu, which is inextricably interwoven with innate philosophical elements of self and society that keeps regulating into series of psycho-social that challenges that professional social worker is called for to render the phenomenon as a professional expert in our modern contemporary Indian society, which cannot be a dichotomous, separated from the innate philosophical and spiritual issues of this land. That is where today's that the August members in this Google Meet we are on Zoom Meet would deliberate further, and I wish the program a fruitful outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful speech. Now, may I please request Professor P.K. Ghosh, sir, for sharing your experiences with us on the same theme. Please, sir, the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Sanjay, Rajkamal, Ajmeri. It's my pleasure to listen to Professor Sideegowda setting the tune of today's discussion, and also from Sanjay ji, Dr. Sanjay and Rajkamal. Looking forward to hearing from other speakers too. But as far as today's discussion on indigenous social work is concerned, I have been arguing with the foreign universities whenever I visit that if even you say that social work is uh, your product, but I consider it is an Indian product. To contradict and to support my statement of being social work being an Indian product, that social work education, which was uh, not much seen until the middle of 20th century in India, but was inbuilt in Indian social system when you look at the past, the ancient and the medieval period in India. Even before Christ, Gautam Buddha is the glaring example of how he found the knowledge about the society and invented knowledge, in fact, accrued knowledge, and did his field work by being with the people to observe, to articulate, to store, and to find the paths of life which helps people to help themselves. So if even not an university education pattern, but it was, and as a part, integral part of Indian society, where give and take, mutual help and assistance has been the way of life. And that's what is making us a great to reinvent indigenous knowledge in social work. I won't go to the past much because the ancient and medieval period at this age doesn't have much relevance to discuss the modern social work in the 21st century. But what I would like to take the examples of Indian social philosophers, especially the philosophy of Tagore, where I have been teaching, the first in India to introduce the BSW program with 1963, how social work, though not coined or written or documented as social work, but all of you know that the Shantiniketan experiment, what he tried to uh, bring in a new experiment in rural reconstruction, bringing back the social, cultural, and other values of the people so that they could help themselves, to help them to themselves, which is a very, very core philosophy of Shantiniketan experiment. Now, the 100-year, 1922, and this is 2022, celebrating 100 years with about 100 adopted communities around us. Now, what it brings it, what I find that when we structured our course in social work, BSW program, and when we restructure, even now again going for a restructuring of the syllabus and curriculum according to the new education policy, but every time we have always tried to put our focus on rural and ecological, because we still believe that 70% people in India lives in rural areas, and our major focus of intervention in social work should be focused on rural area. And ecological perspectives we all have read, as has been established not only in India but also in other countries, that we would like to intervene with the individuals, groups, and communities, keeping in mind the ecology, the ecological balance, the person's situation in the ecosystem, social eco, the physical ecosystem, social ecosystem, and the cultural echoes. That's what is very important in Indian society. So, as Professor Sideegowda has said, that we have not been able to develop much literature till now, and we still feel as a part of the BSKP, Bharatiya Samaj Karya Parishad, that the first meeting I remember held 2 years ago in Tumkur University, hosted by Professor Sideegowda, where we started reinventing our own literature that suits to social work. And as a part of that, I'm happy to share with you this month itself, I have, along with my two colleagues, one from Switzerland and one from India, have tried to bring out Tagore, a book on Tagore and social work. I think that is one of the important thing that we should look at. Gandhi and social work has already been written by many of social work professors. Like that, there are many other social reformers and social service providers, social philosophers across the country, including Durgabai Deshmukh and others, Jyotiba Phule in the West. We can take their philosophy and their knowledge, their um, um, ways of life to adapt to the social work curriculum. I think we would be doing justice in bringing or developing curriculum, indigenous curriculum in social work education. Now, in India, we are focusing, especially social work today, we are addressing the issues of poverty, whether it is a psychosocial or other, but economic issues are always coming in. Then our major intervention in the social development arena, social development initiatives has been on livelihood, health and education. Health, livelihood, education, and of late we have added with environment. Now, these are the four areas of intervention where social work has been intervening. Most of the social work graduates, postgraduates are working for the non-government and government organizations, need to have a thorough knowledge about the Indian society and its culture, Indian people and their attitude, which is changing so fast. So what we develop today as indigenous literature may be relevant after a decade, 10 years later, because in a fast changing society, we have to update and keep up to the um, contemporary situation as to what is suiting and soothing to the environment in which we are living in. Let all the faculties, scholars, and students of social work focus on finding out what has been the philosophy, culture, and the new education policy is giving us the way, giving us another opportunity to reinvent ourselves. What I believe is developing new knowledge or building new knowledge as well as practice in social work. Simultaneously, we need to reinvent the social philosophy and cultural context in which we Indians have lived in and we are living in at the moment to strengthen our indigenous literature and indigenous ways or methods of working with the people. Say, for example, our founder, Gurudeva, while he was intervening with the communities, while he was intervening with the communities were being dependent, and that's why with the experience of the West, which it acquired uh, um, from the West, that uh, it is just making people dependent, which to avoid that, he tried to build in the capacities of the individuals by developing their knowledge and skills, by organizing them into small platform of cooperatives, be it health cooperative, be it consumers cooperative, credit cooperative, so many in number of cooperatives, and said that never provide material help from outside, build their strength. Let us not develop people, let the development take place in its own course by building their own resources, organizing them, mobilizing their resources, and making them, that's what would be the right way to make them self-reliant and self-respectful, which also he found in those days that people didn't have self-respect. And what he wanted basically with the individuals, groups, and communities, Atma Shakti ka Vikas, power in self. In his poems, in his songs, in his script literature, everywhere he has focused on the power in the people and the way to channelize that, which is we are talking about in social work. So his philosophies and literature, his approaches to development, individuals, groups, and communities 100 years ago is still relevant and seems to be sustainable. So our focus could be reinventing these ways and and updating what is needed to be changed in the changed world today with the advancement of technology and uh, advancement of education, society, as well as the environment in which we are living. How can we improve ourselves is the basic question. And the future generation, the students, scholars, and teachers would must focus on these issues so that we are not much dependent on the literature from abroad, but literature that is coming up from and within us, helping us to strengthen our social work education in this country. With this message, I would like to end here. I thank the organizers for inviting me to be a part of this discussion. Thank you very much, and hope to listen to the other speakers. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful speech. I'm sure with this learning, the participants will have a lot to take away. Now, may I please request our next speaker, Dr. Pratibha Mishra, ma'am. Ma'am, please share your experience with our participants and illuminate them with the sense of knowledge. Please, ma'am, now the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajkamal ji. आराध्य के चरणों में वंदन. My mentor for social work, indigenous practices, Professor Y.S. Sideegowda ji, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Tumkur University ji, my old dear friend and colleague, Professor P.K. Ghosh ji, from Vishwa Bharati, Shantiniketan, my younger brother, Vishnu ji, Professor Sanjay ji, Head Ganpat University, Department of Social Work, Dr. Rajkamal ji, other scholars, participants, and all the ladies and gentlemen who all are present here by the virtual mode. It is my proud privilege to present few opinions, observations about the topic, that is social work in 21st century, relevance of indigenous practices. I'm sure this effort in terms of dialogue series from the Ganpat University will be a landmark in the 21st century for the human development based on peace and non-violence. Before starting my presentation or my views, let me tell you that my presentation is divided into various sections. First, I will speak out few quotes in the form of questions, assumptions, or principles, or maybe in terms of observations. Then declaration of guiding principles for the indigenous practices. an overview along with the few recent examples of corona and others, then what we need to do for the social work or what is required by the future professional social workers. Let me start. In terms of questions, because most of the participants are future social workers and they are the students. My senior colleagues may be knowing what I will speak, but I will try. What my previous speakers have said, I will not repeat the things. A few new thoughts or brainstorming kind of views I will give to my participants or the viewers, and I will really appreciate if they will think over it and try to involve or inculcate in their social work practices while doing the field work or conceptualizing the theoretical aspects. The first quote is, the model of social work education that have developed in the developing countries like India seems to be imported from Western social work education. Second one, countries like India, which were predominantly rural, as rightly pointed out by Professor P.K. Ghosh, and everyone knows it, that more than 70% population lives in rural areas and had adopted the urban American models of education. Although we have started the initiation through new education policy 2020, and we are thinking in terms of 2045 we will reach the complete transformation. It is a good move, good initiative and innovative practice. The third one is, social work arises in the West to help a few marginal people to adjust to the society, whereas most of the developing countries like India, the poor are vast and significant in terms of majority. The professions value orientations of self-reliance, self-determination, and such like have been considerably fostered and influenced by the liberal values and beliefs of American society and may not be acceptable by the other countries like India. And the present situation is entirely different. We have to build our own indigenous knowledge, which is applicable to Indian conditions. Next is, now what declaration and the guiding responsibilities for the indigenous social work practice. We, the indigenous people on this earth, have responsibility given to us by the laws of creation for the purpose of maintaining harmonious relationships with all forms of life. We have 4 gifts to guide our behavior to exercising our responsibilities. Our language, number 1, our ceremonies, our knowledge, our traditions, and our relationship to the land. Here I would like to tell that if we have developed in last 85 years in terms of indigenous material in social work, then UNO need not to declare that more than 242 languages are extinguishing from the India. They may be from tribal population, tribal areas, or special zone areas. Now, as we all know, since its establishment in 1936, social work professional education have evolved in India, and currently there are more than 550 social work institutions offering certificate, diploma, be it undergraduate level, postgraduate level, doctoral degree, and the postdoctoral degree social work programs. But unfortunately, social work profession in India could not match the international standards due to the lack of indigenous knowledge and over-reliance on the Western theories, concepts, models, as rightly pointed out by Professor Y.S. Sideegowda, which have mostly remained American or Eurocentric. The importance of Indianization of social work education is need to highlight it now. Now how the Western influence on literature of social work has limited to reach and development of indigenous social work profession in India, because our culture, our heritage, our socioeconomic conditions are entirely different from the West, and we have a diverse kind of population in terms of caste, class, and other things. Social workers have an intrinsic professional duty to use indigenous approaches to understand local context and to undertake culturally relevant research and practice with appropriate efforts to ensure the practices align with the economic, cultural, political need of the country. I will strongly suggest that Indian universities must emphasize and adopt the Indianization of social work curriculum, as rightly working on Bharati Samaj Karya Parishad, and need to promote Indian indigenous methods and practices of social work along with the integration of Indic values of social work. They are dharma, which is dharma is here related to duty, nishtha, that is dedication, satya, truth, or ahimsa, non-violence in social work education. Now, question comes why we need the social work education. The development of an original social work education program has been a vital step for several reasons. The lack of substance within the cross-cultural and anti-oppressive social work education for Aboriginal students, and neglect of the impact of the colonial history and contemporary social and wellness issues, and indigenous knowledge of social work around the world. Indigenous approaches to social work are based on indigenous knowledge and the experiences, and reflect foundational values of the importance of family and community. As in the West, there is a no concept of the family. They believe in I and we believe in we. So we have to strengthen through indigenous knowledge our heritage in terms of family and community, and later on we can develop the community organization as the topmost method of social work, and under that we can emphasize other social work methods, and we need to include another primary social work method, that is working with the family and help for the helpers. Now, the indigenous knowledge system and practices have been proven contribute to the sustainability and the productivity of the ecosystem, examples of which include various, I can say all the SDGs we can achieve if we develop the indigenous practices of social work in 21st century, because lot of documentation is required, and few indigenous traditional teachings we can involve in our social work education. I can example 7 teachings, that is love, respect, courage, honesty, wisdom, humility, truth, medicinal weave, and other cross-cultural activities. Culturally competent practices requires a commitment to increase one's knowledge and appreciation for the diverse cultures. Embracing culture as a central focus in social work practices, and becoming aware of one's own culture, values, beliefs, and how these shapes in our worldview. And apart from that, indigenous knowledge provides a problem-solving strategies for local communities in a local way. especially for the poor people and those who are living in the rural areas. Indigenous knowledge represents an important component of global knowledge on the development issues. Indigenous knowledge is an underutilized resource in the development process. Teaching children in their languages and traditional ways maintains community culture, reduce school dropout rates, and leads to economic growth. It also strengthens the linguistic diversity and contributes the achieving both declaration and 2030 agenda, which includes explicit references to the indigenous people. If we see the theme of 2022 for the social work education to celebrate the social work day, that is also shows the indigenous practices to the social work. And at presently we need to how we can develop the sustainable development goals through indigenous knowledges and the practices, maybe through KVK, maybe through various practices which need to document it and implement it. We need to again re-emphasize the Gauri Rani Banerjee papers which she has written in the Indian perspective. Now we have to understand what is the indigenous knowledge for social work required. That is in terms of traditional knowledge related to community or culture, and they are different from specific community, specific caste, specific culture. Respect for the earth so that we can fight for the climate change, and contemporary knowledge is also sometimes a part of the indigenous knowledge. How we can imbibe or we can add modern knowledge in terms of our indigenous knowledge for the welfare of the human being or human development. Decreasing number of the traditional groups and the societies. Now indigenous knowledge and practices for the social work needs two types of major information in terms of extension and in terms of research. Incorporating the indigenous knowledge into research extension can contribute to the local empowerment, local capacity building, and increasing self-sufficiency and strengthening the self-determination. Utilizing indigenous knowledge. Indian indigenous knowledge gives legitimacy and credibility in the eyes of both local people and outside scientists, increasing cultural pride and thus motivation to solve the local problems with the local resources. Now, indigenous knowledge in the economy of the information society, how it can help. Traditional knowledge is increasingly reduced to an important resource, valuable raw material. For the knowledge economy of the information society, we need to develop indigenous knowledge. Cultivars and the inventions are mainly utilized by the agribusiness to improve the commercial food and fiber crops, pharmaceutical industries, and we have to see the where is the in indigenous worldview, where is the ethical space is there. Along with this, I would also like to emphasize there are few threats also to the indigenous knowledge that we have to keep in our mind, that prior informed consent considered not necessary. Pressures of modernization and cultural homogenization, macro level problems and supposed to be solved by the global pool of the knowledge. Continued neglect the international institutions of the ethical and professional rights of the local communities. Very few institutions supportive to the grassroots innovations and the traditional knowledge. Here, I will give you the few clues or how we can include the indigenous knowledge practices in our social work field for the 21st century for the better development and ultimate leads to the human development. Number one, we have to be incorporate in our social work curriculum ethico spiritual approaches to the social work, especially our younger generation, future generation who are learning the social work practices or doing the social work or becoming a professional social work. And we have to include in our curriculum such as few thinkers I will name or saints like Guru Ghasidas ji, Birsa Munda ji, Acharya Tulsi ji, Nanaji Deshmukh ji, T. Karunakaran ji, Ila Bhatt ji, and Kumarappa ji. And institutions like Gramodaya and Swarajya needs more kinds of encouragement, as well as more these types of institutions need to be built up. I've given the ABCDE philosophy for the indigenous practices in terms of social work for 21st century, where A stands for we have to develop practices which are acceptable, affordable, accessible, available, and accommodative and adaptable with the terminology of assimilation. And B stands for we have to believe in the various traditions, rituals, and how we can come from the how we can go for the journey from becoming to being with a brave mind. Then C stands for our approaches should be constructive, communicable, and connective oriented. D stands for our social work practices in 21st century will be based on democracy, diversity, dialogue, and discipline based as Indian atmosphere and environment required this. And E, we have to think in terms of education, employment, economics, empowerment, along with the ethics. As for we have to work for the food, fodder, fuel, fabric, and fiber. And in all these A, B, C, D, F will be accomplished with the concept of H, as Mahatma Gandhi has given the concept of education, that we should have a positive correlation between head, hand, and heart. We also include various concepts like aparigraha and vitragita for the samanta or barabri ke rishte, as we have seen in last 2 years, especially during the corona period, that our composite culture, that our family and the community only help us, and they were come out as a strong pillar in fighting the corona. So we have to be preserve our concept of joint family, and Indian philosophy is based on Vasudev Kutumbakam. We have to propagate in the 21st century if we want indigenous relevance to the social work, indigenous practices in the social work. And we have to go for the Sanyam and focus on the research, develop the efficiency and effectiveness based on the caste, class, gender, and how we can go for the achieved status. As we have seen that during the corona, only the family institution, only the family, which is a social institution which provides the psychological, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual well-being to all individuals. We need to develop a kind of Kheda project and Amul for the self-sufficiency, and we go for the industrialization and service sector in terms of production by masses, which Mahatma Gandhi has given a lot of emphasis on that. then only we can develop the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and that will the real sense of indigenous social work practices in the 21st century. Here I will stop my talk, and I will be thankful for the organizers to providing me this wonderful opportunity, learn from each other. Thank you so much. If any questions, we will take in the last. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful speech and enlightening our participants on the indigenous practices in relevance to the social work field. Now, may I please request our last speaker of the day, Dr. Vishnu Mohan Das, sir. Sir, please share your experiences with our participants. Now the floor is yours, sir. Please, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rajkamalji. And thank you, Dr. Sanjay Vahaniji, for giving me invitation. I also feel privileged to listen Professor Y. Sideegowda, sir, Professor P.K. Ghosh, sir, and Pratibha Ma'am. And both of all the three speakers have almost covered the entire, the perspectives of indigenization of social work education. And what I took message from Professor Sideegowda, sir, there is need for Indic knowledge systems in the social work curriculum. He clearly highlighted the need for Shastric literature, that Bhakti, Vedanta, all these things. And particularly, I took message that there is a need for, we should take from the Indian ancient scriptures. And from Professor Ghosh, sir, what I learned, there is need for adopting the Indian models of rural development, particularly Shantiniketan experiment. And Pratibha Madam has also beautifully narrated the ABCD model. And what I took also from her, that the social work curriculum is completely, imported from the Europe and America. So probably this has been, the topic has been designed that there is need for indigenous resources and in this 21st century. And what I assume from this topic, that since the introduction of social work education since 1936, there has been no relevant indigenous resources, and we have been completely following, adopting that universal knowledge that has been given to us by the Europe and America. But that is the assumption that I got from the title. And of course, we know since decades, even since the introduction of the social work education, our senior social work educators, they have been emphasizing that we should adopt theories and practice models in social work that is relevant to our social, cultural, and economic contextual frame of India. And by nature, social science is indigenous. That is the basic purpose of social science. Even the term science is, wrongly added to the term social. And the concept of science, has eaten the basic essence of social. So because of, by adding the term science into the social, we are more emphasizing on scienticism, empiricism. That is why all our social research, that is one of the major method of social work that we practice in the field, social casework, group work, CO, social action research, and social welfare administration. These are the primary and secondary methods of social work that we are supposed to apply in the field setting. One of the important method, that is social work research, completely, just I'm giving one example, because one of this method, social work research, is completely failed because of our emphasis on scienticism and empiricism. We are trying to apply, so many of statistical methods, t-test, chi-square, z-test, ANOVA, so much of emphasis on hypothesis testing that ultimately the problems remains in the field. We are not able to address the problem. And the basic purpose of social work research is to solve this problem, social and economic problems of the society. The problem remains the same, and we are again doing the research. This is because the methods, the concepts, the philosophy of entire social work is European and Western. We have never tried to examine the suitability of these methods. So what I am just within this few minutes, what I wanted to say that if you analyze the social work curriculum, the social work practice teaching methods since 1936, we will find that it is conceptually not relevant. It is methodologically, there are several methodological flaws. It is not also effective. And there is also philosophical problems. So if you see, even there are methodology technique that we adopt in the field that we teach to our students that is also not relevant to our context. So there are several flaws. If you see the entire curriculum, practice, training modules, there are several deficiencies and shortcomings. For example, I'm taking from the how the concept that we're teaching to our students, how it is completely irrelevant. I'm taking from Pratibha Mam's presentation that she talked of the family system, that they believes in I. In Europe, they believes in I, and we believes in we. In India, if you see, the concept of family is completely different than the concept of US and America. In India, when I am staying in Delhi, I am staying with my spouse and with my kids, and we, as per their terminology and definition, I am a part of nuclear family. But in US and America, when you talk of nuclear family, they are completely independent. Here, I am not an independent individual. I am an interdependent individual. I take decisions. I take advice from my parents, grandparents, elder brothers, elder sisters. Always we are getting connected telephonically through WhatsApp, through Google Meet. So there are different ways of getting connected. So it is not the kind of family that the Europe and America talks of nuclear family. So from the conceptual point of view, whatever we are teaching to the students, not only in social work, in other discipline of social science, it is conceptually, there are several flaws. And we go to methodologically also. The methods that we have been teaching, for example, just like I told, the social case or community organization, the models, the methods that we are teaching, that is also not relevant to our context. American society and European society is a kind of disorganized and kind of split society socially. Economically, militarily, they have enough resources, their power, they have complete dominance. But you see the social structure, that is a kind of agricultural and modern society, and Indian society is basically an agricultural society. And Indian society, we are very strong, very, very strong if you compare with other developed countries in relation to values, ethics, morality. That is the strength of our country, strength of our nation. So there is need to, there is, if you come, I'm coming to that methodological flaws. The methodological, then what we are doing, we have completely adopted their methods like community organization, because their community is disorganized, but our community is completely in a kind of organized community in India that you're living. If you visit a car festival or there are Kumbh Mela, you can see, if you go to Gurudwara, if you go to temple, if you go to any civil society, RWA in village panchayats, you will find the feeling of brotherhood we feel it. So all the methods that we are teaching, for example, in community organization model, as highlighted by Pratibha Madam, there is need to, our models of community organization like Nanaji Deshmukh Chitraput model or Tagul's model of rural development. Rather, we are what we appreciate their international model like Rathman's model, as we think that their models are universal, and of course their knowledge systems have become universal because of their economic and military strength, their nuclear strength. And that is why we have been following that their models are good, their models are more suitable, and this has been deeply get into our mind, in the subconscious mind, that our knowledge systems or theories are inferior to the Western knowledge systems. Even theoretically, there has been a debate in the social work since the introduction of social work education in 1936. The theories that we are teaching to the students are not relevant to the practice. The theory, for example, we are teaching Sigmund Freud theory. There are many Rothman's theory. There are so many of theories of social work that we are teaching, but when the students go into the field, they face very much difficulty in application of these theories into the field of setting. So there is a complete gap. So theory-based teaching we should move forward from the practice-based theory. So whatever relevant practice models we have, as highlighted by other speakers like Pratibha Madam or Prasant sir, and also Sideegowda said that Nanaji model of Chitrakoot, that practice model we can take into the theory. Shantiniketan experiment we can take into the theory. Whatever theory we are teaching to the students, and when they are facing difficulty in application, so they are not able to develop the required competence that they can do if they could apply it, they could learn from the practice-based knowledge that could have been taught in the classes as theory. So this is one of the things that should need to be done if we want to really go for developing indigenous literature. Another important thing is we always in the class focus on method oriented study methods. You go and in the concurrent field of days we always emphasize go and apply for the methods, and these methods are purely Western that has been developed, designed and tested in the European American socio-cultural setting, and social cultural realities of India, as I've told, it's completely different. So we need to promote that field-oriented study, not the method-oriented study that we have been doing. And overall, the social work, if you see, what I used to always highlight, that there has been, the philosophy and the values that we are promoting is completely, that is Western and European, and it is based on one particular ideology and religion. We cannot in social work, basically they are social engineers. They want to revamp the society. We cannot promote, that kind of Marxism, that kind of radicalism in the society. We need to promote, integral humanism. We need to promote voluntarism. We need to promote humanism. So there is a need for expanding the philosophical base of social work that is very, very essential. Another important thing is in social work, what I see as a student since 1996, I did my master's from Vishwa, Shantiniketan. Then I did my study, my MPhil, PhD and postdoc from the University. Since then, 1996, I have been listening from my teachers. One of my teachers, Professor Ghosh, is also here, that there is always, need for Indianization of social work education. And this has been, I have been listening when I was student, and I've passed, around 24, 25 years. And I've completed since I have done my social work education. But when actually in the field, we started that there is need for Indianization of social work, and now we're doing in the heading under the banner Bharati of social work, there has been opposition by the so-called father, grandfather and great-grandfather of social work that this is Indo-centric. The allegations they are coming with, this is Indo-centric knowledge. My dear colleagues and students, social work, not only social work, the entire social sciences has to be Indo-centric. That is the basic essence of social science, that it has to be local, it has to be contextual, it has to be indigenous. We cannot promote universalization in social sciences. Social science, social work, it has to be local, indigenous. Physical science, natural sciences, we can think of universalization. So what happens, of course, we have become independent since 1947. We called ourselves, we have got independence, Swadhinata. But that Swatantra, that Swadrushti, that needs to be developed. Still now, we are teaching that Machiavelli, we are still teaching the Sigmund Freud, still we are teaching Marxism. Our ancient Indian knowledge systems that has been completely sidelined, neglected. That does not mean I am telling against European and American knowledge systems. The European social work, the American social work is very good. It is very good for their context. for their country, not for our country. And in the recent years, there has been movement gaining momentum in the globally towards the Indianization of social work education, and the debate of universalization and Indianization is still prevalent. That highlighted by Professor Sideegowda sir, that since 1936, Marsenden also told that we need for go for developing Indianizing social work education. But unfortunately, we have so many of social work review committees in 1960, 1975, 1990, and 2001. We could not get the curriculum. Recently, UGC has come up with the BSW LOC curriculum. If we examine the contents of the curriculum since 1960, overall, we are maintaining the same content, same quality, same methods. There is no overall changes into the curriculum. So, as highlighted by Professor Sideegowda sir, we need complete paradigm shifts in social work education. So how we can do that? Unfortunately, if you see the entire syllabus of the curriculum, Pratibha madam is here, you will never find a paper on Indian social work. Indian social work, there is not a paper. Even if you read social science, history, economics, geography, you will find Indian history, Indian geography, Indian history. In social work, we have become so much European in mind, so much European American in perspective, that if some literature based on Indian knowledge systems comes, we always tell that is based on a particular ideology. So we need to move from one particular ideology. We should embrace other different ideology, as suggested by Ghosh, that Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, all the ideology, Hinduism, Christianity, all the ideology are relevant. Whatever relevant to our context, to our country, we must accept them. If it is not relevant, we must reject them. That is one of the methods of developing indigenous resources, that is decolonization. When I'm talking of decolonization, I am not taking a stand towards anti-colonialism. I'm not taking stand towards anti-imperialism, and that is also not our approach. Rejection is not our approach. We believe in inclusion. Whatever is relevant to our context, the theories, models, experiences, will definitely adopt and incorporate in the social work curriculum. And if you see our neighboring countries, in Africa also, in China also, they are also advocating that indigenous approaches for social work and social sciences. And it has been gaining momentum. They are coming out with Sinocentric social work and Afrocentric social work. So we need to, as highlighted by Professor Sideegowda sir, we need to reorient our social work curriculum. We have to revamp, we have to rejuvenate, we have to restructure, our curriculum ideologically, conceptually, philosophically, and methodologically. As there has been questions towards the validity, towards the reliability, towards the effectiveness of Euro-American centricism in social work education, as highlighted by already our Pratibha ma'am. So we want an inclusive, compatible, adequate, effective, culturally relevant, logically connected social work curriculum that is relevant to our Indian context. So in the 21st century, there is need for, what I emphasize, need for incorporating the Indian philosophical and cultural wisdom in the social work literature and practice. How we can do? What are the different ways of Indianizing resources? Already Pratibha madam has given ABCD model. I am telling few clear cut, I'm telling you few steps that we can go for developing indigenous resources. Number one is decolonizing the social work education theory and practice. Already I have told, if the Western theories are relevant, you adopt them. If it is fitting to our context, you adopt them. If there is need for modification, alteration, revision of these models, go for it. This can be done when you test their theories and models. For example, you can go for testing the segment model theory. You can go for testing this model of dream analysis, psychoanalytic theory, whatever theories are given, we must go for testing its reliability and validity. If it is relevant and in our context, we must adapt. Otherwise, we must go for rejection. We cannot uphold the opinion that American, European theories and models are universally acceptable and relevant. That is not, that is, against the basic ethos of social sciences. Number two, we have to document the Indian models of rural development and social welfare and social emancipation. One example is given by Professor Ghosh Shantiniketan experiment. Another model was mentioned by Pratibha Madam, that Nanaji's experiment. There are so much models of rural development and social welfare. Bindesar Pathak model, Anna Hazare model, Baba Amte model, so many models. We can document those models. That is another way of developing indigenous literature. Number three, as highlighted by Professor Sideegowda sir, we have to document the important models given our Shastras, Vedas. We have to take them. We have Ayurveda system, we have homeopathy, we have naturopathy, we have, yoga, we have vipassana, we have meditation, and several research studies have shown that these Indic methods like yoga, vipassana, meditation are very much relevant for solving the psychological problems, emotional problems of the individuals. If you can see the website of the Nimans also, you can find some successful stories. That does not mean that we have to only rely on that aversion therapy, other therapies, psychotherapies developed by the West. That is another model. Another important way of doing that, developing the indigenous resources, is we have to find out the genius, invisible genius individual. There are lots of people who are getting, highest civilian awards, Padma Shri, second highest, third highest civilian awards, Bharat Ratna, Padma Bhushan, and they are contributing immensely for the social empowerment of the society. But we have always a mindset. That he is not a professional social worker. That overemphasizing on profession and professionalization, it has always become a hurdle. For example, if you go for psychology, if you see that the major leading psychologists, they are not at all but having degree in psychology. You can talk of, Skinner, you can talk of your Maslow, you can talk of even Freud. They are not having degree in psychology, but they have established theories for psychological sciences. For example, in sociology, in social work, if you go for sociology, you will find major sociologists to whom we consider the important sociologists. I can give some names. They are not even having degree in sociology. Even in social work, we say Nanaji Deshmukh is not a professional social worker. We can say Baba Amte is not having degree in MS social work. We can say Tagore is also not having a degree in social work. But we are talking, Gandhi was not also having a degree in social work. We are talking of Gandhi and social work. Why only Gandhi? We should take the all like this. There are all invisible genius, experimental models of rural development and social welfare. Those who are getting Padma Shri Award, Padma Vibhushan Award, we can document those models. So, my friends, these are the different ways of, devising, framing, and developing relevant indigenous resources. So, and what I can suggest, that our literature, our curriculum, and our syllabus, our fieldwork pattern, the module of fieldwork training has become completely stagnant. We need to be flexible. The syllabus has to be very dynamic. We have to rechange the syllabus according to the needs of the time. You can see, there has been there has been complete change due to the COVID-19. And we produced a batch of social work students who even could not visit the fieldwork. So the social work modules that we are teaching, that is, purely a pre-COVIDian idea. So after the COVID, the fieldwork mechanisms, the fieldwork modules, the training programs, whatever the pedagogy we are following, it needs complete revamp and restructuring. Because, after tsunami, at that time I was doing my study in Delhi School of Economics, Delhi School of Social Work. I was doing my MPhil there. And, after tsunami, suddenly there is emergence of course on masters in disaster management in several universities. So we should think we should be futuristic as a social worker. It is not that if something happened, then we should come out some ideas. You know, in the entire 2 years journey of the COVID era, COVID pandemic, we social workers could not play an important role in the process of social work and service delivery. You know, our doctors, nurses, police officials, they civil society organizations, you know, the NGOs like Seva Bharati, you know, they played tremendous role, you know, alleviating the sufferings of the poor. And we, the social work professionals, social work teachers, social work practitioners, we are sitting in at home and giving lectures in the social media, in the Google Meet, Zoom, that we are only throwing the words, this should be done, that should be done. Practically level, we could not do. Where the people like Seva Bharati, civil society, and other NGOs, and they played tremendous role. So the question arises, about the relevance of social work profession, and we feel same that we used to, call ourselves we are professional social work. Still, I have doubt whether we should call ourselves as profession, or we should call ourselves as a semi-profession, or we are evolving to be a professional. So the question of professionalization has been very much, you know, deeply ingrained our mind, that we never accept that volunteerism is also an important aspect of social work. In Indian context, we should think of moving from professionalism to volunteerism. And there are other issues. Again, there has been demand by the few sections that we should go for a social work council and licensing. Again, we are trying to adapt the European and American model. Yes, I am not against the social work council. Yes, the council should be designed keeping in mind the needs, resources, the cultural relevancy of India. It should not be fully adopted model, kind of model from the West. So these are the things we should keep in mind, because after the post-COVID situation, there has been, from globalization, so there has been a heavy importance towards localization. We should think of not only human rights, always used to say social justice, human rights. As social worker, indigenous social worker, we should think of, you know, human duties also, that what are the duties of citizens. As Pratibha Ma'am told, we should follow the duties. He told dharma, nishta, ahimsa. These are the, you know, basic essence, basic universal values of the society. These are the cardinal values of society. It is not that it values general human values. It is also essential social values that needs to be adopted, that needs to be ingrained. Unless and until we ingrain these Indic values, dharma, nishta, ahimsa, satya, we cannot be a social worker. We need passion. A passion, we can get passion when we ingrain, we can digest this, we can take these Indic values to our heart. Like Virendra Sawa goes into the field, you know, he has passion, he always tries to hit 4s and 6s. Like that, if we have these kind of values in our heart, like dharma, nishta, we can be a great social worker. So this is a very, within a very short time, I cannot speak more, already the time is crossed. So this is my small submission. Thank you giving me the chance to speak before the audience. Thank you, Sanjay ji and Rajkumar ji.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. Now I would like to request all the participants, please type your question. Now the session for the question and answer is open. We'll, looking at the limitation of the time, we'll try to pick the topmost 3 questions. Please write your question in the chat box or in the question and answer session. Sir, I would like to raise here one question which was asked by Ada Freya Tufa. She asked the question to Professor Y.S. Sideegowda, sir. Sir, she wants to know that what the simple suggestion you delivered to other countries like Ethiopia with full of diversity and indigenous knowledge to develop their own perspective in this 21st century.
Sideegowda sir.
Shantiniketan, sir.
Vishnu sir, would you like to respond this question? Vishnu sir or Pratibha ma'am, please, or Ghosh sir.
क्वेश्चन एक बार रिपीट कर दीजिए.
Yes, sir. What simple suggestion you deliver to other countries like Ethiopia with full of diversity and indigenous knowledge to develop their own perspectives in this 21st century?
Yeah, already I have covered it in my presentation that Ethiopia is a part of African continent. In my presentation, I have already told that the African countries also, they are also coming out their own indigenous social science and social work. What I told, Afrocentric social work. If you see, there is a concept of Ubuntu in Africa. Ubuntu, that concept is almost similar to Indic concept of dharma, that is duty, that is talk of duty. So what I think Professor Sideegowda sir is suggesting, we should adapt, we should borrow knowledge from the countries that have similar social, cultural, and economic milieu. India's culture, Indian civilization is almost similar to the Africa and to the China. So we can think of having some models from African continent that we call Afrocentric social work, and from China that is we call Sinocentric social work. So these Afrocentric social work and Sinocentric social work that can be more effective than the European and American models of social work that is completely different kind of society. Their philosophy is different, their perspective is different. That is my submission, and other speakers can add to it.
Vishnu, I would like to add further what you have said, that since it is a country with a lot of diversity, now when we talk about Indic social work, indigenization of social work education, that within the diversity of the people, their culture, their um, habit and practice, we need to soothe or sensitize our own intervention accordingly. Say, for example, for a specific community where the people are little conservative. Now, our strategy and methods should how it should shoot into that is to be again found out through our own experiential research and experimental design as to what actually shooting to the people where there is so much of diversity. Say, for example, in our country we have diversity. We have some thousands of languages, different kind of people, different culture, different kind of belief and superstition. Within that framework of intervention, we have to have a very specific first is indigenous, and then within the indigenous there would be we would require some more specific intervention or specific knowledge that covers the diversity among the milieu that is living in the country.
Can I add one sentence with the
Yes.
permission of host? I would also like to add what my Dr. Vishnu and Professor P.K. Ghosh has said. We have to find out the similarities and differences in the diversity, and on the basis of similarities and differences, we have to check it and do the research and find out the gaps and where we can have a different kinds of patterns and interventions which are as per the time, situation, and the positions. It is very difficult to speak out that this particular model is good for them or this particular model is equipped for this indigenous practices of approaches. We have to implement, like Afari, as rightly pointed out by Professor P.K. Ghosh, that their situations, their nature, their rituals, and their belief and culture are entirely different, or there may be some similarities. So first we have to find out the similarities and differences. Then later on we have to go with the help of research and then decide what kind of interventions are required for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and all the sirs. Sir, the second question I would like to take here, one participant is asking that, can you please, sir, elaborate on the meaning and the context of the term referred by you as an anti-colonial? So she wants to know about the term referred the anti-colonial. What does it mean by?
Because anti-colonial means the term I spoke, India has been part of the colony of the British. We are governed by the British, we are British ruler. And during that time, what happened after 1835, we completely, our education system that was based on primarily the Gurukul system, that was completely, shifted. And we got a new education policy mechanism that is suggested by the Lord Macaulay. And since 1835, we have been taught in English, and our entire curriculum, everything, our syllabus, our theoretical, methodological, whatever we require in the teaching learning process, have been completely borrowed from the West. Even in social work education, when it was implemented in 1936, the entire syllabus, the fieldwork patterns, the books, references, reading materials, completely borrowed from the Western and European universities. We did not, when the social work curriculum, social work education was introduced in 1936, there was nothing, kind of need-based study. Suddenly, it was implemented by J.R.D. Tata, and they established a school of social work. And that time we did not have any literature, any model, any book, any references. So under the scheme of Indo-US exchange program, we invited faculties from the US and the Europe, and they taught us what should be taught, what books should be referred, what methodology should be adopted. So since then, we have been following their knowledge systems, their theories, that is completely imported. And still now, after 85 years of social work education, still we consider their knowledge systems as, gospel truth. We think that their models, their knowledge systems are quite, relevant even in our context. Still now we are maintaining status quo. So that knowledge systems given by the West is still being taught in the Indian universities. So when I mean anti-colonialism, that does not mean I am completely rejecting the knowledge that we have adopted from the West. That is why I am telling, when you're talking of Bharati or we are talking of Indianization, I am not referring to anti-colonialism. That is why I have referred, if their models and theories given by them is relevant to our country, we must adopt them. If it is not relevant, then we must reject them. That is my perspective of telling anti-colonialism.
Adding to what Dr. Vishnu has said, if the candidate is a student, in simple terminology, the whatever is not relevant to situations, time, or indirectly we have adopted and not convenient to our environment or to adjust, that is anti-colonialism. It is in simple form. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir and ma'am. Ma'am, I would like to know one more question on this. Like, what are the differences between the Sanskritization and Indianization?
Okay, very prominent question. Dr. Vishnu, can I ask, or you will first speak?
Yeah, Rajkamalji,
Yes, sir.
you wanted to know Sanskritization and
Ah.
Indianization.
Yes, and Indianization, both the differences actually.
Yeah. Sanskritization, that is, we used to say Sanskritikarana, that is a sociological process identified by M.N. Srinivasji. In his study in Karnataka, he found that the lower caste people, they try to follow and adopt the rituals practices of the upper caste. That is basically confined to a particular class concept. When we talk of Indianization is nothing new. When you talk of Indianization, जो आप बोल रहे Indianization, when you talk of Indianization in the context of Tamil Nadu, that is Tamilnization. When you talk of Indianization in the context of Punjab, that is Punjabnization. When you talk of Indianization in the context of India, that is Indianization. And Indianization, Article 1 of the Constitution says India, that is Bharat. So I talk Indianization is similar to the Bhartikaran, right? So absolutely Indianization is Indianizing the social work education. When we talk of Indianization, we talk of contextualization, we talk of holistic social work curriculum, we talk of evidence-based social work curriculum, that is your perspective. Even the international definition of social work, IFSW, they also highlight Indianization of social work education. Indianization in the context of India is Indianization. That is very simple. And Sanskritization is different, has almost different connotation. That is a part of sociological process of social mobility. I think I am clear.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, with the due permission of all the speakers and actually we are moving on the next phase of the session. Before that, I would like to tell all the participants that we have already shared a feedback link into the chat box for all the participants. Please write your feedback by clicking on it and you will get your certificate of participation for the today's event. Now we are moving on the next phase. That's a vote of thanks.
There is another question in the, I think, chat box. If the time is there, you can see, otherwise we can leave. Something else. I think if I'm not wrong, Minakshi is the name of the...
Yes, there is an Anuprita Chatterjee. She is asking to the Pratibha ma'am, what is the role of R.V. Parulekar on Indianization of education?
In a nutshell, I can say, follow the new education policy and contribute the transformation of the Indian society. Because it itself is a very big topic. We can discuss it about it, but it is a kind of step new education policy for the national development and Indianization of the education.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Now, I think almost the questions we have covered, so we can...
One Meenakshi, how can we inculcate something like that, love towards our fellow society?
Yes, okay. So, sir, we are moving on the next session. That's a vote of thanks now. Dear Head of the Department, Professor Sanjay Vanani, sir, all the guest speaker, the team members, and the participants. It is my privilege to have been asked to propose the vote of thanks on this national symposium titled Social Work in 21st Century, Relevance of Indigenous Practices, organized by Department of Social Work, Ganpati University. Dear all, we all know that the event like this cannot happen overnight. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues of Department of Social Work, Ganpati University, who know their job and are always result oriented. Dear all, I, on behalf of Department of Social Work, Ganpati University, and the entire team wants to extend a very hearty vote of thanks to our eminent speakers, specifically starting with Colonel Professor Y.S. Sideegowda, sir. Sir, you spoke about the Anglo-Indian perspective of social work. You gave an ideology of dharma and various religion approaches. It is an important and that must be included in the curriculum of social work education. Sir, you rightly realized us the true need of reinventing literature in a social work field. We certainly agree with your speech, sir. Secondly, Dr. P.K. Ghosh, sir. Sir, I certainly agree with the concept of social work in Indian concept, which was an evidence from the ancient history of India. The idea of helping people to help themselves, and of course, the context and the learnings from the Bhagavad Gita, which teach us specifically about helping people without expecting anything, that's supposed to be very important in the religion and the learning context of Indian social work education. Dr. Pratibha Mishra, ma'am, you spoke about and you realized about the building an own indigenous knowledge of Indian society is a very important idea. You said that the lack of indigenous knowledge leads to demark an Indian social work knowledge. Development of indigenous methods of social work practices must be an invented and make it a part of education system. You said that the problem solving strategy for the local people in a local way can support on wisely to develop our locality at grassroots level. Dr. Bishnu Mohan Das, sir, you explain about the current social work knowledge and practices are conceptually and methodologically irrelevant. And the same we are practicing since 1936. You gave an example of community organization as a method which was irrelevant in an Indian societal context, was deeply experienced by me as well while expressing and studying, while teaching to my students. I certainly agree with your statement that we shall develop Indo-centric knowledge in society for studying the social work knowledge. And you focused on the various models of social work that's supposed to be learned and introduced as a practical learnings for the students. Sir, and all the speakers, I am sure the students and the other professional participants will have a lot to take away from the speech. I also extend my thanks to all the participants. Despite their busy schedule, they joined and become part of this wonderful event from the different part of the country and the world. Once again, I want to state that we are almost grateful to you all. We thank you for being with us in this afternoon. It has been a great pleasure. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone.
Pratibha ma'am, namaste.
नमस्कार, nice to see you. दिल्ली आएंगे तो मिलेंगे.
ठीक है, बिल्कुल.